start the meeting. Now we got our sporting done. Turn this on. Good evening. What day is this? No, I know what my calendar thing is. Okay. Good evening, and welcome to the Village of Royal Palm Beach first public budget hearing. It is Thursday, September 6th, and it's 6:30. And will you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diane, please let the record show that all members of council are present. And as I stated, this evening, we're starting out with our first budget hearing. At the conclusion of the budget hearing, then we will reconvene and have our regular council meeting with our regular council agenda. So with that, I'll start out. I announce? Okay. I want to announce that the proposed operating millage rate necessary to fund the budget is 5.86% above the rollback rate, which is 1.8137 mils. We announced the proposed operating millage rate of 1.92 for the general fund. And now we're going to get a summary from our Director of Finance, Stan. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to point out initially that included in this budget document, as outlined in my revised budget message addendum, is an increase in the stormwater fee of $1 from $4.50 to $5.50. The total budget this year is $44.5 million. General operating expense is 55% of that number, capital projects 27%, reserves 15%, and stormwater utility at 3%. Our highlights: property values once again are up, this year projected at 6.2%. Our tax rate has been maintained as it has been for years. There will be 2 full-time positions proposed in Parks and Recreation and 1 in the Planning and Zoning. Increased stormwater fee by $1, as I just alluded to, and will incorporation of strategic plan initiatives. Our ad valorem tax overview. Again, property values, including new construction, increased by 6.2%, a total increase of $176 million. And once again, we're maintaining the operating millage at 1.92 mils per thousand. The impact of the proposed millage rate on properties valued at $145,000, $204,000, and $263,000 are $182, $296, and $409 respectively. Our first fund is the general fund, $24.5 million. Property taxes, 21% of that number. Other taxes and fees, 25%. Licenses and permits, 12%. Intergovernmental revenues, 18%. Charges for services, 2%. Fines and forfeitures, 2%. Miscellaneous revenue, 4%. And our current year fund balance is 16%. On the expenditure side, personal services, 42%. Contractual services, 40%. Of those contractual services, the largest part of it is the police department contract, so effectively personal services is close to 82%. 14% is other charges and services, commodities at 3%, other operating expense at 1%, department capital outlay and grants and aid at less than 1%. Merit adjustments are programmed at an average of 3.5% for all employees. A cost of living adjustment of 2% is included based on the 12-month running average from April 2017 to March 2018. Medical insurance cost premiums will be based on market projections. Continuing with the expenditure summary, Planning and zoning and engineering currently share one administrative assistant. That administrative assistant will be going to engineering, and planning and zoning will be getting administrative assistants for themselves. Parks and Recreation, we have an addition of a program coordinator and a facility attendant, and a deletion of a temporary bus driver and a permanent part-time bus driver. Next fund is, I'm going the wrong way.
It went back.
Next fund is the Stormwater Utility Fund, where I alluded to we have an increase in $1 in the stormwater fee. Revenue, stormwater utility fee is 81%, and our fund balance is 19%. On the expenditure side, personal services are 40%, contractual services less than 1%, other services and charges are 36%, commodities at 3%, other operating expense less than 1%, transfers at 15%, and reserves at 6%. Our next fund is our Capital Improvement Fund for $18.6 million. Recreation Facilities Fund is less than 1%. Beautification Fund also less than 1%. Impact Fee Fund, 7%. Sales Surtax Fund, 28%. General Capital Improvement Fund, 27%. Utility Fund, 1%. And reserves, 37%. And that, Mr. Mayor, is the end of the budget summary.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, this is a public hearing, so now we'll open up for comments from the public regarding the budget. At this time, I have no comment cards submitted, but if anyone here would like to comment on the budget, now would be the time to do that. Seeing none, then we will progress. We'll close public comment, but if someone comes in before I close the meeting, I'll give them a chance to speak if they want to speak. Item 5 is the adoption of the proposed operating millage rate of 1.92 for the fiscal year 2018-2019. And for that, unless there's comment from members on council, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve the proposed millage rate of 1.92.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item, budget item 5, approval of the 1.92 millage rate was approved 5-0. Okay, item 6 is now the adoption of our tentative budget for the fiscal year of 2018 and 2019. If there are no comments from council, I'll look for a motion. There is a comment. Selena?
If you just want to talk about that $1 raise for the stormwater utility fees for the canal cleanup that we talked about, so that was an issue. I don't know, or if you want to.
It was something we did talk about it
Right.
during the workshop. I think we did. We did talk about it, right?
It's the 16th meeting.
We indicated would be included, so, and there were some comments from the public about it,
And
yeah.
that was the difference.
Yeah. So obviously, we're doing something about it. We're responding to the feedback we got from the citizens, and we will address it. As I said when they were here, that I don't want to see them here next year for the same reason. Maybe something new, but not for the same reason. So hopefully, okay. Okay, any other comments from council? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the adoption of tentative budget for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that the budget agenda item number 6, adoption of the budget fiscal year, the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 was approved 5-0. I would now at this time announce that our final budget hearing will be Thursday, September 20th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. And one last chance, anyone from the public would like to speak? If not, then I will close the public hearing for our budget review for 2018-2019. So we stand adjourned. Now, I would like to re-adjourn us for our regular council meeting. Boy, it's really coming down out there.
Football game's got to be fun.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for the Village of Royal Palm Beach, September 6th, 2018. And Diane, we already have had our Pledge of Allegiance, so we won't do that again. And Diane, please show that. Oh. What happened to Joseph? Diane, what happened to Joseph? Do you know?
I do not,
Okay.
unless he's just running late, but I
Tamara Cook. Okay.
it's R3.
Okay. All right, Diane, I was just going to tell you that please show that all members of the council are still present for the regular meeting. This evening, our agenda was, we were supposed to open up with a presentation and an introduction, really, from Josh Datello, who's the new CEO of the Palms West Hospital. He wanted to come by, introduce himself. I had a wonderful opportunity to meet him about a month or so ago. They had an open house for him at the hospital, and we look forward to talking with him more. I don't know what happened to him, but hopefully he's okay. If he shows up later on, we'll try to fit him in, obviously. But right now, we're going to go forward with our reports. And I'll start out with a report and a question to put before this council. Last week, a meeting was called for the Western Communities Council. And the primary item on the agenda was to dissolve the Western Communities Council. They even had a draft resolution prepared. Well, we didn't resolve it, and one of the points among several points I made was that we can't just sit here at the table and resolve it. Or everybody needs to go back to their councils or their commissions or their utility board, whatever board they're on that was on the council, and put this before them and get a confirmation whether or not that body, their individual bodies, agree with that. But just let me spend a few minutes to give you a little history about the Western Communities Council. First of all, it was put in place some 26 years ago, all right, which is quite a bit of time, long before many of us were here, obviously. The notion of why it should be dissolved was presented as because we haven't done anything over the last year and a half. And there's a notion that said there really aren't any issues in the Western communities that we need to tackle, which I very voicefully said those are not accurate notions. To be straight, that doesn't make sense. We could come up with a long list of issues that I think that have an impact on our region. And the purpose of the Western Community Council was to address regional issues in the Western communities. The notion being that individually we're weaker than we're stronger if we come together as a regional entity. And over the years, there have been various issues that have come up that the Western Communities Council was very successful and effective in helping to address. One of them being the Calorie Judge Project that came around about some 10, 12 years ago. It was through the Western Communities Council that we mobilized our forces. And each of the entities, for example, we had a role to play, and other groups had roles to play. And we had Ray, and we volunteered Ray to make the big presentation at that massive county commission meeting, where the decision was swayed to say, no, we're not going to approve 10,000 homes, out in our Western communities. We've also more recently been involved in, when I say involved, this village contributed funds, all right, to fight the State Road 7 project issue, and where we contributed funds to hire a lobbyist representing the Western Community Council and to fight the good fight. We know the fight's still going on, but that was something that was more recent. Just to point out, all of the members on the council did not contribute, all right, to the funding of that effort. So the fact that meeting haven't been called, I kind of said that I think that's about leadership in terms of if you're leading the council, you need to drive the fact of making sure we're coming together with the list of issues. And we've got 20 I think we could come up with 20 things that are regionally impacting issues. And let's bring the council together and figure out what are the top 2 or 3 that we want to focus on and put some strategy behind. that was his thoughts that I shared at the meeting, and I wanted to share with you tonight what my sentiments were at the meeting. And I said clearly I was going to come back to you, and really would be a collective decision on what direction we should go concerning the council. So with that said, I'll open up for comments. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Starting with you, Jeff.
So one of the things, of course, we all know is we're going to experience a tremendous amount of development out here. And I think it's important for us to have a venue, a mechanism already in place to be able to bring everybody's ideas together and see if we have something that, first of all, is very common. And I think there are a lot of things that are common, and unless we have a conversation, we don't recognize it. Secondly, what a collective strategy might be to actually address the issue. Without this, what I've seen, as much as I love our sister municipalities to the east, the influence they have is very substantial. I've watched it in MPO, TPA. I've watched it in actually even Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. It is very, very substantial. If we don't have a collective voice, then we may not be heard, even though the activities are that significant and that important to us here in the central part of the county. So I think it's really important to keep the dialogue going, to keep a mechanism in place, and to discover those issues that we really want to put resources to, if any should arise. But to be able to do that in a timely fashion, you got to keep the conversation going. So I would support continuing with it.
Okay. Richard?
What was the reason? What was the reason behind suggesting disbanding? Was it just the fact that nothing had been done in that past year and a half, or were there other issues? Because my 2 cents on it is, look, we still have the State Road 7 battle to fight, and that's a huge thing that impacts all of us out here. And I'd be on board for keeping the Western Communities Council alive, at least until that is resolved, which obviously is not going to be anytime soon. So I was just wondering why they were coming forward with this, especially with such a huge regional impact issue out there, that having a forum for all the stakeholders to come together seems to, at least in my mind, keep it together for that long.
Well, I think that's a good question you asked. I'm glad you asked, because that question was really raised at the meeting, and we probed what's really behind this. And we even asked, in this case, the representatives from Wellington, is this about the fact that you guys are doing the administrative support work for the organization and you don't want to do it anymore? If that's the reason, we'll pick, somebody else will pick it up. They responded by saying, oh, no, that wasn't the reason. Okay, if that's not the reason, then what's the reason? The fact that we haven't had a meeting in a year or a year and a half, the fact that there seems like, well, nothing's really happening. Well, nothing's going to happen until you make it happen. And that was the feedback they were given, that was shared. That, if we sat around this table right now, we could come, and we did. We came up with a list of about 18 things that have regional impact. Yeah. I said, let's put together, let's memorialize the list of what we think of the issues are, and then let's call a meeting and prioritize them and figure out, is there anything we could do with these issues that we prioritize to move the dial? Mm-hmm. Let's at least do that. And so we left it at, okay, everybody will go back and talk to their agencies and come back with feedback from that. I think you were next.
Yeah, I agree. I think the purpose is really important. Collectively, our voice in the Western Palm Beach County, this central area, is really important, that we all know what each other is thinking and we can have a collective voice. I'm curious, as Richard was, about kind of the impetus behind disbanding. You answered part of that, but are there other voices from our other sister neighborhoods saying the same thing? Is it one voice saying we should disband?
For the most part, there was a sentiment around the table that no, we shouldn't disband. Okay, it was a sentiment. Just to give you the makeup of the council, the last meeting we had, we didn't have a chair, and I think he's Vice Mayor McGovern, so Wellington was selected as the chair. And a person who attended their first meeting ever in the West Community Council, this new city, it was this vice mayor, I think, from the new city out there, the 39th city, Westlake, was appointed vice chair. Now, why that happened, I don't know. But I think that Mr. McGovern's fairly new on the scene. He hasn't been around. He hasn't been here for the wars, believe me, that we've gone through on the Western Communities Council on some of these issues. And for somebody who's just the first time they even showed up, they even know what the Western Communities Council is, I just want to say that I just thought that was interesting. And then the next thing I know, we're being petitioned about disbanding it. There seems to be, to me, a lack of historical context and perspective from many of the members, because I looked around the table and there were many new faces there who have not been there and been around and been part of the elected body of this community for many years. So I just calling it like I see it, I think part of it is we have a lot of folks who are part of this group now representing their organizations who don't have the historical context, all right, or the historical knowledge about what's been going on in the Western community. So I think there's a level of innocence there, perhaps, and when you put all that together, I think is where we are.
Could we recommend or suggest possibly an orientation for those of us who haven't been a representative on the Western Communities Council, but still want to participate and try to get up to speed on a little bit of the history and where we are now and what we think the purpose is going forward?
I think we could do that, but I just want to tell you, we're the longest tenured folks there. So, but with that said, I think part of the point might also be is, I think if we should we have a conversation about the makeup of the organization? Are there certain groups who really shouldn't be there, but who are there and who were there because 26 years ago it made sense? I'm just suggesting that.
Right.
I'm not saying that has to happen, but let's have, if that's what we need to have, is that kind of a dialogue in terms of strengthening or crystallizing what we want to be about going forward and how we want to operate. Perhaps that might be something to do. I don't know, but good point. You agree with we should? All right, so our consensus is I will go back and tell them we absolutely should continue, and let's talk about how we do that in an intelligent way. Okay?
Maybe a little strategic planning.
Yeah. Are you the representative for Royal Palm Beach on the Western Communities?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it may be like to Councilwoman Radusky's point is maybe then to at
No,
least-
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to figure out who we get to do that.
or at least
Most appropriate.
Okay.
Well, and I'm not suggesting that I'm interested in being a representative, but I think it would be interesting for all of us to participate in some either a workshop or a strategic planning session. And
Well, the meetings are open. I mean, they're not, when they have the meetings, you absolutely is open if you also want to attend, but I'll keep that in mind, figure that out, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go back, we'll continue that. Okay, I'm going to pause reports right now because we have our star representative here, Mr. George DiTello. He's the new CEO of Palm Crest Hospital. We were worried about you. We figured maybe the weather had something to do with it, but if you were supposed to be first up, but now that you're here, I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be, so please come and join us.
Thank you for having me. My apologies for being late. I was told you all started at 7, so I
Who
thought I
told
was.
you that?
I thought I was early.
Yeah, we changed that, about a year ago now? A little bit more than a year?
My
Okay.
apologies.
That's fair.
Well, really-
You got to go back to who told you that and
I will.
check with them.
Next time I'll come back at 6. No, I just wanted to say hi to everyone. My name is Josh DiTello. I'm the new CEO at Palms West. I've been in town about 6 weeks now, coming most recently from Fort Myers, worked at a hospital over there. And then before that, I was over here in West Palm, over at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach. Prior to that, I was down in Miami. Served 5 years in the Army prior to that, and originally grew up in Tampa. I've got 2 children, almost 6, almost 3. They are in school at Binks Elementary and Cambridge. So we're excited to be here in town and looking forward to working with all of you. So anything I can do for you at Palms West or in the community, please let me know, and I'll try and set up some time with all of you individually, and I can hopefully come see you and meet you in person. So
Great. Look forward to it.
any
All right,
questions I can answer?
Questions? Well, I don't know if you remember, we did meet when they had the open house.
Yes,
and
sir.
I will be following up with
I
you
did
in the
not forget.
conversation we had, okay? I appreciate it.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Thanks a
Thanks for
lot.
braving the weather. Go ahead.
I did want, I just wanted to ask, I know you're new to the game because I have 3 children and all 3 were born at Palms West, and you referenced St. Mary's because I remember at the time, hey, your kids are going to be born, it's less than a mile from my house, but if anything's seriously wrong, St. Mary's is where you're going. And I did notice recently that I think Wellington now has the NICU like St. Mary's did. How about Palms West? Do we have that, or
Yes, we do. We do have a NICU now. It opened about a year ago.
neonatal intensive care
neonatal
unit? Sorry,
intensive care
Fred.
unit. Correct. Neonatal intensive care unit. It opened about a year ago, year plus, and we have 10 beds. They're beautiful, state of the art. If you ever want to see them, come by. But yeah, we're here to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Josh. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, I concluded my reports. Why don't we start with you, Jen?
I have nothing to report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
So on August the 15th and 16th, I was able to attend the Florida League of Cities annual conference, which it's always interesting. This year, as you might guess, the overwhelming theme was home rule. And that's true not only because of the need to continue the defense, and they shared a lot of the reasons we needed to remain focused on this again at the for the next legislative session, but also it turns out it was the 50th anniversary of the constitutional amendment which created home rule, providing the local governments the opportunity to and the responsibility to make decisions for their constituents. And of course, as we know, last year there was a very significant number of bills that were proposed. It turns out there were about 50 bills that were proposed, each one of which in different areas, or some in similar areas, were an attempt to preempt to the state level the decision authority that resides right here in the cities. And of course, the basic idea is the government closest to people has the best insight to make the best decisions and that type of thing. The good news is none of those 50 were successful, and that is really good news. And the repeated statements were, however, we cannot let down our guard. We need to prepare our defense for the coming legislative year, and so we definitely need to do that. One of the reasons that I've heard about was that, of course, the Speaker of the House is going to change, and the President of the Senate will change, and so new leadership, which is where a lot of these preemption initiatives came from, possibly could change. Unfortunately, based upon the G2 intelligence information that's out there right now, it's not likely to happen. In fact, if anything, there is likely to be a more orchestrated, carefully crafted, targeting collection of bills this year instead of the rather random shotgun kind of preemption bills that we saw last year. So if anything, the challenges look to be more significant this year. And it's unfortunate, too, because it really seems to come from a lot of individual leaders' experiences with local or perceptions of local governing as being abusive, over-regulating, not knowing what they're doing, and that kind of thing. And as I mentioned, that's broad brush kind of an approach. And in the world I come from, it's called mass punishment. And that usually really doesn't work well in just about any circle. So unfortunately, there's more to come in that regard. And it was interesting because some of the information that we got suggested a couple of really particularly good approaches to dealing with the defense of home rule. And one of them was to have a presence throughout the entire session. So that's 60 days up there.
How do we do that?
And
Brennan RV.
collectively, some of the leagues had actually carefully scheduled to ensure that there was at least one representative in town for every week. And so that's an approach I think that's being considered. It does make sense. I mean, it's great to go up there during the group activities, Palm Beach County Days, Florida League of Cities, legislative days. That's all fine and well, but you really get very little time with any of the legislators. You don't spend any time with the committees, and so the argument was it's more effective to be up there for a longer period of time. Of course, having a good idea as to what it is that we're going up there to do is really important. And that was another question I posed, and the answer I got was, well, the agenda isn't perfectly clear just yet. New leadership, not the least of which is a new governor coming in. Their organizational meeting will take place on November the 20th. I was told we'll know more information at that point in time. So it was an interesting collection of best practices and also kind of an alert and warnings about the coming session. So it was a very, very informative conference, as it normally is. One of the keynote speakers was the mayor of Parkland, and of course she talked more about the shooting in Parkland, and she gave a perspective that was not too surprising with the impact it had. I think Parkland's about the same size as Royal Palm Beach, if I remember correctly, and so, you know, really medium-sized kind of a city. The impact is horrendous, and she described the experience and that kind of thing. But then she went on to say, so it wasn't over when it was over. And while people kind of pulled together initially, camps began to form afterwards about how to address things such as gun violence and that type of thing. And she said it was much more divisive than you might expect under those circumstances. And so it was an interesting presentation. It was more about being prepared for this kind of horrendous event so as to do our jobs as well as we possibly can collectively. So as I said, it was a good conference. One other thing I wanted to mention was that this afternoon, the Vice Mayor and I both went to the Literacy Coalition's, I just lost what it's called. Read for the Record? Yeah, Read for the Record, kind of an event that they have every year. This is like fourth or fifth year, I think, that we've actually been really substantially engaged in this thing. And last year, in fact, each and every year, we have increased our participation, which is pretty cool. And the participation is volunteer readers reading at pre-K and kindergarten levels at our local schools and daycare centers, the same book on the same day, which is read throughout the country. So that's the Read for the Record. Well, the record part is competition among the cities and municipalities, especially here in Palm Beach County, and it gets pretty intense. It really does. The good news is that last year we had a personal best, kind of a record-setting year. The bad news is, not sure exactly how Wellington did it, but they knocked it out of the park. And so we're going to have to increase our involvement and our engagement this year.
I don't know what happened. I didn't get to read last year. I don't know what the details were, but I want to make sure I read this year, so can you? Okay. Yeah.
Be glad to share.
Anybody else up here want to sign up to read?
Right.
Yes, of course.
You? Yeah?
So,
You signing up? You ready?
so yeah, one of our
All
key,
of us want to read.
okay, that's cool. So one of our key targets are our elementary schools, and so
You want to read?
I'll definitely share that with everybody. As a matter of fact,
I don't want, that's okay. I'm sorry.
so that's all right. The title of the book this year, if you want to go out and grab a copy, unfortunately they didn't have the advanced copies like they normally do, because I usually get to hand them out or wave them. The title of this year's book is Maybe Something Beautiful, and it's particularly appropriate given that we are looking at an art ordinance, because it's a story about art making a community beautiful. And as was described at the luncheon, it's the story itself was actually drawn from a real world situation in San Diego, where they have what is called their urban art trail. And so it's a backstory on that. And of course, it's in terms that is appropriate for kids that age. But I thought, how appropriate for us to be doing that this year. So by all means, we'll keep everybody in mind as more information becomes available.
I'll read all day.
So. No, you have to read it to the kids. You can't just read it yourself.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it was an excellent event, and we're looking forward to participating in all of these activities. And I think Selena and I both have a bunch of things that we can share with everybody for Read for the Record. Takes place on October the 25th.
Just get us all assignments to go read.
Okay.
We'll,
Sign up.
yeah.
Go on the website and sign up.
Well, we can help out with that here locally. So
Okay,
Diane volunteered.
okay.
So
You done?
yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Richard?
Just, I guess, to follow up on what Jeff had mentioned at the League of Cities and local control. We have an election coming up in November, and we have a whole bunch of constitutional amendments on the ballot, and I think two of which, if I'm remembering correctly, are directly related to local government control, one of which, and it's kind of difficult because these amendments don't deal with one thing, they deal with multiple things. So one of the amendments, in addition to a bunch of other things, deals with losing some of our local control over charter schools and limiting our school district officials to a specific term limit. And then there's another one. There's certain counties, Palm Beach isn't one of them, but not in every county. I think the exception is Miami-Dade. Sheriff's not elected. Certain counties decide, okay, we want professionals, not elected people, to do things like sheriff or clerk and comptroller. And at this point, it's up to them to do those things, but this is an amendment with other things in it as well that addresses local control. And so it's not just a legislative issue, it's an issue for the voters. And I would encourage everyone to read up on the amendments. I know it's a lot. There's 13 of them. They're very wordy, but we've got a, yeah, sometimes no means yes, but we've got a couple months, so please read up and make sure to show up in November. Thank you.
Okay. Selena.
Thanks. Actually, all of us attended. I'd like to say thank you very much again to Joel Case for his 35 years of service to the village and in Parks and Rec. So it was amazing just to see that. And when the mayor talked about longevity and history, and you have somebody who's been there that long. So thank you again to him for his service. I did attend with Councilman Hamera, it was the League of Cities Mayor Literacy Lunch and with the Literacy Coalition in Palm Beach County. So Comcast was a sponsor, and one thing that they talked about is that they do have their low-income family program, but they just rolled out one for veterans, so you can apply for a reduced rate for your cable bill through them as well. So that's something new that they're doing. The Literacy Coalition gave us a few statistics. They were saying that 46% of our third graders read below grade level. Children who don't read well by the 5th grade fall behind and are at a greater risk of dropping out. The positive side, though, is that 95,000 new books were distributed by the Literacy Coalition to children and families and that are done each year. So that's a tremendous work that they're working on it. And what was really neat and close to home is that the Literacy Coalition did donate books to, we have 2 little free libraries that are going up in the village. So they donated books for that. And Aaron Franklin is working on that. And thank you very much to Lou and Park and Rec again, because I think our first one's going up in Veterans Park. So thank you very much for that. As Councilman Hamera did say, there is the Read for the Record, and it's Maybe Something Beautiful on October 25th. And the other one that they talked about was the Read Together book, and it is The Best State Ever by Dave Barry. So if anyone's not familiar with Dave Barry, he's a great writer. A transplant, so I'm going to give this to the village manager, all that information, to the area. So it was really cool just to see his perspective of it. I would also like to say real quick, congratulations to Royal Palm Beach resident Valerie Dorsey of CharmedVacations.com. She was featured in the Palm Beach Post a couple days ago for having a women-led business. And what's really neat is they wrote a story on it, is that South Florida ranks in the nation's top 5 metro areas for growth in women-owned businesses. So it was a really neat article, and it was really great that they featured one of our hometown women as well. And on a sad note, I would like to say rest in peace, Burt Reynolds. I will miss him. Thank you.
Okay.
No report, Mayor.
State Road 7.
State Road 7, yes. And then to follow up on what Councilman Valentis said about the constitutional amendments, if you or any of the residents are interested in summaries of those amendments, the Florida League of Cities website, they have issue briefs, so you can go on and you can see exactly what each amendment is about. And so if you have residents asking, what are the key points I should be aware of, refer them to that website. They have pretty good summaries on there. Okay, so the mayor asked that I provide you all with an update on the State Road 7 litigation. I know the village manager shared with you all in early August, the 4th District Court of Appeal issued an order in the case between the City of West Palm Beach, FDOT, Palm Beach County, and the South Florida Water Management District. And unfortunately, the 4th District Court of Appeal reversed the administrative law judge's order in favor of FDOT in the district and the county, and they reordered another administrative hearing for the city of West Palm. The 4th District Court of Appeal, they based their opinion on 2 issues. One was a procedural due process issue. About a week before the first administrative hearing, the county and the Water Management District, they amended their permit application. And the goal of it was to, in layman's terms, try to make the water quality issue better with State Road 7 and the impacts to grassy waters. And the city of West Palm Beach objected to that plan amendment, that permit amendment, and said, you know, we need time and our expert needs time to be able to analyze this. We're a week away from the administrative hearing. The administrative law judge denied the city's request for a continuance. The 4th District felt that that was prejudicial and unfair.
City's request? I thought it was FDOT.
No, the city asked for a continuance because the FDOT and the district and the county amended their permit. It was a week before the hearing. And the 4th said, you know, guys, it could have just been a short continuance. It wouldn't have been a big deal. The judge should have allowed that. The second reason that they're ordering a new hearing is on a more technical nature. The administrative law judge issued his opinion, and in that opinion, he had interpretations of certain, they call them nutrient standards, you know, water quality standards. And one particular nutrient standard, both the district and the city of West Palm Beach objected to it and said that, Judge, you didn't use the right standard. And the district said, just rely on the FDEP standard. That's the one we want you to rely on. The judge did not amend the final order to reflect the FDEP standards. So the 4th District Court said, we think you need to have a new hearing that's prejudicial to the city of West Palm Beach. So where we are right now, the 4th District did order another administrative hearing. On September 4th, the 4th District was asked on a motion for reconsideration. You know, the FDOT and the county and the Water Management District said, please, court, reconsider your order. They denied that motion for reconsideration. So the options now are they can try to appeal to the Florida Supreme Court, which I think will be difficult. These type of proceedings, as they move up the chain, the standard of review becomes more narrow, or they'll just go back and have another administrative hearing. I have absolutely no idea when that will happen. It took years to get to the first one. So, but as we know more information, we'll definitely share it with y'all.
Now, my understanding is that the project, though, is still moving forward with the 2 parts of the project. One part was to punch out all the way out to North Lake from 60th Street, but the other part was to widen the lanes from 2 lanes to 4 lanes from State Road 7 up to 60th Street. I understand since FDOT had already awarded the contract, they really had to start moving forward with doing some actual work with the contractor.
I don't know. Maybe the manager can speak on that.
Okay. Because that's important, because they could wind up having a problem on the other end, having awarded a contract, and you know what, that sets off some wheels in motion that both sides have to adhere to. But that's my understanding, is they are going to start working on the lower section that's in place and expanding that from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. It'll be 2 lanes each way. So the saga continues. Okay, keep us posted. Thank you. That conclude? Okay, thank you. Okay, we've completed reports, and right now, if there's anyone here who has a petition for the council, now would be the time to present that petition. Seeing none, we're closing then to petitions. And right now, I'll take statements from the public on items that are not on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. I do have a comment card here for an item that's not on the agenda. Could Jackie Uzarski please come up?
Sure. Hello. Excuse me. My name is Jackie Uzarski. We reside at 140 Valencia Street in Royal Palm. We live on the canal in one of the few areas that are designated a no-wake zone area. Most boaters and wave runners that come through, they come through respectfully. They don't cause any damage. They just go through. Some boaters, though, are not, which is why we're here this evening. I did write you a letter. I wrote you 2 letters. I think you know about this. There is one gentleman that has a rather large boat. It's referred to as a wake boat. And for whatever reason, he prefers to make his turn in front of our dock. And it's not very wide there, and we have a dock, and the neighbor across the way has a dock. And when he comes through, he comes, oh, excuse me, at excessive speeds to make his turn to cause a wake for his kids that are wakeboarding and the skiers. He comes very close. He's damaged our boat. We've been on the dock. He splashes us with water. We've asked him to keep a distance. He became very belligerent with us, and that's when we wrote our first letter asking for help. It's my understanding that someone did go speak to this gentleman from code enforcement, and he did keep his distance for a little bit, but now he's there. It's a constant. He's become very aggressive. He doesn't slow up for other watercraft. He doesn't care if you're on your dock, if you're fishing, you're sitting there. And it's not very safe. And I don't know what to do with this gentleman. We're not here to limit the fun that people can have on the canal. We're not here to cause trouble. But we too would like to go out in our boat. We'd like to enjoy our dock without a power boat at excessive speeds coming toward us. So we're asking you if you would consider changing the wake zone in our area.
Specifically, what are you asking us?
Well, I'm asking you, the area is not a no-wake zone area.
Yeah, I'm confused.
I'm asking you to change it to
Right
where
now, it's not a,
it is not a no-wake zone area.
okay, so,
You can go at any speed you like.
okay, that's what I
Right.
wanted to be clear.
So
Okay.
when we tried to discuss this with him, he told us, given that, he's not doing anything wrong and he can do as he pleases.
Okay. So you're asking us to
Well,
consider
I'm asking you to consider changing that in the area.
making it a no-wake zone? So
Right,
then he'd be breaking the
correct.
law?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
as the day progresses, he becomes a little more brazen, a little more aggressive.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, his skier, because he makes the turn, and when he did, his skier hit one of the pilings on our dock.
Were they injured?
No, he just kind of, kept
Was the
going.
doc injured?
No, no.
Okay,
But, I mean, there's not a.
I want to get all the
just-
facts out, that's all.
My husband and I, we grew up on a lake.
Okay.
And I mean, sure, you all know, when you see other watercraft coming, if it's smaller, you slow up, you steer away. But I'm just asking if you would consider
All
changing
right.
it.
Well, thanks for coming this evening and apprising us. Yes, we did get your letters, and it is something that we are trying to figure out
Thank you.
what can be done. But thank you. and
Appreciate your help.
if any of your neighbors also want to come and share their thoughts, we'd be interested in that too. Thank you. Okay, if there's anyone else who'd like to comment on items that are not on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, now would be the time. I have no other cards. Seeing none, then I'm closing public comment for non-agenda items and for consent agenda items. And with that, can you read the consent agenda, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Number one, approval of the minutes of the council regular meeting of August 16, 2018. Two, approval to purchase two IBM Power 9 AS400 servers and professional services to upgrade IBM V7R1 servers HWSW to V7R3 and migrate Superior HTE public sector administration software applications to new servers. The current IBM iSeries AS400 V7R1 servers have reached their end of life support and will no longer be supported by IBM as of November 2018. Village IBM servers host building permits, code enforcement, cash receipts, fixed assets, GMBA, land parcel management, business licenses, purchasing inventory, payroll personnel, and planning and engineering applications. Purchase of IBM Power 9 servers and professional installation migration services will be made from IBM Partner Mid-Range Support and Services for the amount of $54,000 under IBM's Florida State Contract 432-11500 WSCA 15ACS pricing. 3, approval and authorization in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 303 in the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Said amendment to transfer a total of $54,000 from undesignated fund balance 3990100 to Village Hall outfall replacement SW1401. 4, approval and authorization for the village manager to execute an addendum to extend traffic calming policy development services provided by Simmons & White for 2 years. 5, approval of the bid award in the amount of $56,400 and authorization for the village manager to execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for project SW1401, Village Hall outfall replacement with LCCI Construction LLC. 6, approval of the LRFP award in the amount of $33,000 and authorization for the village manager to execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder, Municode Web, for website design, development, implementation, and hosting services.
Thank you. If there are no comments from members on council, I look for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that the consent agenda in its entirety was approved 5-0. All right, now we move on to our regular agenda, and we start out tonight with a presentation from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Our own very Captain Aox is going to give us a mid-year kind of semi-update on how things are going in the village.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Village Manager, Council, thank you for allowing me to present the District 9 semi-annual report to you and the residents watching tonight. Joining me is my criminal intelligence analyst, Mr. Harry Hook. As they have done in years past, the professional and dedicated staff of District 9 continue to work diligently to ensure the safety of the residents, visitors, and business owners of the Village of Royal Palm Beach. Calls for service. Calls for service are used to depict the number of calls received from the community desiring our service. By dividing the village into different geographic sectors, the Sheriff's Office is able to deploy efforts as needs and patterns dictate. The computer-aided dispatch system, which is also known as CADS, captured a total of 50,496 incidents for the first half of 2018. Of those, 38,466 were proactive calls such as business or residence checks, traffic stops, etc. The remaining 12,030 were law enforcement calls for service. Overall, there was 357 more calls for service in the first half of 2018 than the first half of 2017. Calls for service increased 3%. UCR statistical comparison. The total crime index is used to measure the crime rate per 100,000 individuals. For the first half of 2017, our crime rate was 431. For the first half of 2018, it was 449, which equates to 18 more incidents, or an increase of 4.2%. This increase is due to the fact that the first half of 2018 included a homicide and 2 more sexual batteries than 2017 did. This, combined with an increase in auto burglaries, caused the change. Noteworthy and very important is the fact that overall violent crime fell 30.2% in the village, and 4 of the 7 UCR categories saw decreases in their percentage rates. To break it down a little further, the Uniform Crime Report, or UCR, captures 7 major crime categories. They are murder. Within the first 6 months of 2018, there was 1 murder in the village. This murder was a case of matricide, and the suspect was arrested. The murder caused a 100% increase in this category. Forcible rape, which in Florida is also known as sexual battery. There were 4 sexual battery cases investigated in District 9, all of which were acquaintance-related. The increase from 2 in 2017 to 4 in 2018 caused a 100% increase in this category as well. Robbery. There were 4, a 55.5% decrease from 2017. Aggravated assault. There were 32, a decrease of 41.8% from 2017. Residential and commercial burglary. There were 16, a decrease of 54.3% from 2017. Noteworthy is the fact that this crime has decreased 60% since 2014. Larceny. There were 374 larcenies, an increase of 18.4% from 2017. Motor vehicle theft. There were 37 in 2017 and 29 in 2018, a decrease of 21.6%. Of the 29 vehicle thefts, 27, or 93.1%, were stolen using keys that were either left in the unlocked stolen vehicle or in a vehicle parked nearby. Now that I've given a brief overview of the categories of statistics, I will provide a more detailed breakdown about some of the UCR crimes. Robbery incidents. As previously stated, District 9 had 4 reported robberies, of which 1 was cleared by arrest, 1 was an armed robbery that occurred at the 7-Eleven on Okeechobee Boulevard, 1 was an acquaintance-related, and 1 is still open and being investigated. Larceny incidents. There were 374 reported larcenies in the first half of 2018, 58 more than was reported in 2017, for an increase of 18.4%. Of the 374 larcenies, 87 were shoplifting. That number rose from 84 in 2017 for an increase of 3.6%. Also included in larceny incidents are vehicle burglaries. Vehicle burglaries accounted for 162 of the 374 reported larcenies. Of those 162 vehicle burglaries, 117, or 72.2%, were to vehicles that were left unlocked. While not all, the majority of the remaining 45, or 27.7%, of the burglaries involved entry into vehicles that had valuables left inside. Traffic. The top 3 crash locations in the village were determined to be State Road 80 and 441, which had 63 or 6 more crashes than the first half of 2017, for an increase of 10.5%. State Road 80 in Crestwood had 45 or 5 fewer crashes, for a reduction of 10%. Okeechobee Boulevard and Royal Palm Beach Boulevard had 34 or 1 less than the same time period last year, for a decrease of 2.9%. And lastly, the total number of DUI arrests for the first half of 2018 was 33. Last year at this time, we had 42. That sums up my semi-annual presentation. I'll take any questions that you guys might have.
Well, I just have a question on the number of accidents that are happening on State Road 7 and State Road 80. What's the trend of what's causing that? Is it people running lights, or people not paying attention, or bad optics?
It's a culmination of a lot of different things, Mayor. Sometimes it's side swipes, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Harry? Sometimes what we have a problem with is we are very GPS computer driven. So if you have an accident, let's say in the Lowe's or Office Depot parking lot, a lot of times it'll be coded to State Road 80 and the State Road 7 exit ramp.
Okay.
Whereas, excuse me, State Road 80 and the State Road 7 exit ramp, whereas necessarily it might not be an accurate depiction.
Okay. And the one homicide, could you just go into a little more detail on that?
Sure.
That was a family-on-family situation?
Yes, it was cleared by arrest. I don't want to discuss it too much because I don't want to provide
whatever you can say, I understand.
It was a very tragic incident, as is the case with any homicide. Daughter, for some reason, viciously attacked her mother and killed her mother. She then went running out into the middle of the street, and neighbors saw it, called 911. Road patrol units from District 9 responded. They took her into custody and contacted detectives from the Violent Crimes Division, where they subsequently conducted an investigation. The woman was obviously arrested, and as far as I know, is still awaiting trial.
Okay. Jeff?
So if I recall from the last report that we got with regard to vehicle burglaries, the number of unsecured vehicles was around 80%. And so it seems, and maybe my recollection isn't correct, but it seems like there are fewer vehicles that have been left unlocked that are actually the target for these vehicle burglaries going forward. If my recollection is correct, then my question would make sense. If it's not, then it wouldn't. But my question is, do you think this is a result of the effort to remind people about locking their cars, about how much of a target they make themselves when they fail to do that? Or do you think there's some other explanation?
I really don't have any information that would back that up, Councilman. I know we've done a very, very large effort. I mean, as I've said in years past, we've printed magnets. We've done those things you put on the back of iPhone cases reminding people. We've done reverse 911 calls. We've done message boards. We've done posters that we've hung on businesses, whether it be Walmart, Planet Fitness, the post office here in Village Hall, reminding people that they need to lock their vehicles and secure their valuables. Recently, what we have seen, and I'll discuss that with you, is an increase now in forcible entries to vehicles. So it seems as if though perhaps people have learned to lock their vehicles, but not necessarily remove valuables from them. Just recently, and it happened after the first 6 months of the year, we had an incident over at the Royal Manor Nursing Home, and we also had an incident over at Greenway Village, where they were forced entry into vehicles. Now, fortunately, Greenway Village, we made an arrest in that case. Royal Manor still remains open, but it's, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to what these kids are doing.
So it's probably, it is indeed a combination of not leaving valuables visible inside the car and making sure that you lock the car. So the combination of those two hopefully will result in a reduction in some of these burglaries going forward. So also I would think that, and I compliment you all on, I think I've said this a number of times, the neighborhood watch activities, because you never miss an opportunity to remind people about these kind of things that you can do to prevent becoming a victim. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate your time.
Richard?
I just wanted to put in my 2 cents or my thoughts on, unfortunately, two of the top 3 intersections of crashes are ones I drive every day on Southern Boulevard. And my thought would just be, is it because it's the most traveled? I mean, there's a lot of traffic on that road all the time, and I don't know, I'm sure you wouldn't have the statistics, but maybe Ray would as far as traffic flow. I mean, I know there's a lot coming from Wellington and even further west, heading east in the morning every day, and heading back west, there's a lot too. And I'll tell you this, I see you guys out there a lot doing traffic enforcement, so thank you. I appreciate it, because there's a lot of speeding going on, but I don't know what the flow is on Okeechobee. I do take it sometimes, but I don't know that it's what it is on Southern. I know it gets backed up by the high school earlier in the morning.
There's thousands more cars on State Road 80 than there is Okeechobee. I don't know the exact numbers, but my guess is it's 10 to 20,000 cars different a day on State Road 80. And the county does keep track of all these accidents. They do keep a GIS layer where they keep all the accidents in there. They do study the accidents, and they're continuously looking at intersections to see what improvements can be done to reduce them.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Just one final question. School has started about a month ago, I guess now, or almost a month ago. Are drivers paying attention and adhering to the speed limits around schools?
That's a question not easily answered, because it seems to be the school that requires the most attention from our district is H.L. Johnson. And what I'll do is, instead of having my motorcycle units come to the district first thing in the morning, they automatically go to their schools, because they need to obviously, monitor what's going on there. And a good measure of what's going on and how successful we are or not usually comes from the crossing guards. So what we'll do is my motor units will go to the crossing guard and say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What problems do you see? What's working and what can be improved upon? And a big thing that we keep hearing is that when our units are present, everything is fine. As soon as they leave, people start trying to make left turns from pass-through lanes, and so I've also sent my lieutenant, one of my sergeants, and my traffic guy over to meet with the principal at H.L. Johnson to kind of brainstorm and see if we could benchmark the best way to try and relieve some of the issues there. My understanding is that the principal opened up another traffic flow over there to try and help us out, but by and large, it's the same with everything, Mayor. When the police are there, people see it, so they don't run the red light, they don't speed, they don't drive crazy as soon as the resources leave, and, sometimes they just go back to doing what they do.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else.
Actually, no, and I'd say thank you very much, because I attended the PTO meeting the other night over at H.L. Johnson, and they did comment that with your presence there, that it does flow a lot faster. They did open the second lane, which was very nice. And also they complimented you on the response time, because they had an incident over there the other day. So they said you guys came through, cleared out, and it still did not interrupt dismissal. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Captain, thanks for the presentation and the update. Continue to do the terrific job that you guys are doing, and let us know if there's anything else we can do for you. Thank you
Mayor,
very much.
Council, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to agenda item R2, which is a public hearing for the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 972, an application 17-0050 by Urban Design Kilday Studios. The applicant is seeking a change of land use designation for 2 tracts of land totaling approximately 4.93 acres from Palm Beach County's LR2 low residential land use designation to the village's single-family residential land use designation, located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of State Road 7. And Bradford, you're on.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I went through this in great detail at the last council meeting, so I'm just going to hit the highlight tonight. The applicant has indicated in their justification statement that this ultimate goal is to develop the property for 106 single-family homes. This is the location of the site. It is a portion, or will be a portion of Pod 4 of the master plan. Village staff has found that this land use change is compatible with the adjacent land uses and consistent with the village's comprehensive plan, and will not exacerbate any existing public facility capacity deficits. The local planning agency considered this application on August 14th, 2018, and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. Village Council voted approval of this application on first reading on August 16th. And again, staff is recommending approval of this application. With that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bradford. Would the applicant like to make any comments? No comments? Okay. I do not have any comment cards for agenda item R2, but if someone would like to comment, now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm closing public comment then on agenda item R2 and ask for comments from members of council. If there are no comments, go ahead.
Thank
Read
you.
by title.
I'll need to read the ordinance title. This is ordinance number 972, an ordinance of the Village Council, the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, adopting an amendment to its comprehensive development plan in accordance with the mandates set forth in section 163.3187 at Sec Florida statutes pursuant to a privately initiated application number 17-0050 SCPA, which provides for an amendment to the village land use map designating 4.94 plus or minus acres more or less of real property as SF single family, which property is located on the south side of Southern Boulevard and approximately 0.27 miles west of State Road 7, US 441, informally known as the Southern Boulevard Properties Pod 4. Further providing for transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency, providing a conflicts clause and a severability clause, providing an effective date and further purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from council? If no comments, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that a regular agenda item R2 was approved 5-0. Agenda item R3 is a public hearing for second reading and adoption of ordinance number 975, amending Chapter 5, Animals, by adding an entirely new section 5-45 titled Retail Sale of Dogs and Indoor Cats, in order to prohibit the retail sale of dogs, indoor cats at pet stores and pet supply stores, to provide exemptions and penalties, and to provide a phase-out period for lawfully operating businesses.
Thank you. We covered this extensively at the last meeting. Just 2 things to note based on council's motion last time. The ordinance now contains a clarification of the term adoption, and it says that adoption for animal rescue organizations and animal shelters does not include the sale of an animal for profit. That is consistent with Palm Beach County's existing animal care and control ordinance. And then also council debated this at length, but the phase out period is now going to be 18 months from the effective date of the ordinance until March 5th, 2020. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And Mayor, whenever you're ready for me to read the ordinance title, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take comments from council. I'm going to do public comments first. Yeah. Somebody's. Oh, it's mine. Okay. Okay. We do have comment cards for this agenda item, and we'll start with Tamara Cook. come on down.
Hi, I'm Tamara Cook, resident of Royal Palm Beach for 22 years. And I just want to have a few comments about the meeting I missed, 3 weeks ago, I guess. Sorry about that. I wasn't here for the first reading. I had a date with a 36-inch, 20-pound young gentleman that lives in Claremont. But I understand that there were quite a few people here. There was a lot of discussion about it. I am very happy to see that the council is behind us on the 5-0 vote, which is awesome. One of the things that, prompted me to get involved in this from the beginning was the fact that I have lived here a long time. We've had pets like everybody else, and I got involved with rescue about, I guess it's been about 8 years now. And to see the condition of some of the animals that have come into rescue, and a lot of those started off their lives in a cage at a puppy mill. And so when I got the opportunity last year to start doing some investigating with some friends, I found out how horrendous it actually was, and thought, gee, Royal Palm needs to be one of those cities that comes down strong on that. And I was glad to see that we have the support for that. The only thing that I would have an issue with at this point really is the phase out plan. 18 months is still a lot of time. For somebody to even change their business plan they don't need that much time. Love to see something like a Wolfgang Bakery here, working in conjunction with our adoption, with the rescues that we have locally. We have so many. But, the time to transition to something like that wouldn't necessarily need 18 months. So I would only have a recommendation and a request that maybe that can be looked at again tonight. Not always familiar with all the processes, but 12 months seems to be more manageable. 9 months would be awesome. But we know that there is a lease that might be going into effect for them to renew under what they're doing right now. And so I think the timing would be great if we could reduce that amount of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Fran Badalo? Or is it Bad Lotto?
Bad Lotto ticket.
Bad Lotto,
Yeah.
okay. So I added a letter in there on you.
Okay, hi. My name is Fran Badlato. I come from Coral Springs, Florida. And Honorable Mayor Pinto and council members, on behalf of the Humane Society of the United States and our members and supporters, thank you for taking steps in the right direction to combat puppy mill cruelty. The proposed pet shop ordinance will help stop the puppy mill to pet store chain and decrease the demand for puppies raised in cruel conditions. This ordinance will also shift the market towards humane sources such as responsible breeders, shelters, and rescues. I urge you to pass the proposed ordinance to better protect consumers and animals with a 12-month effective date. California passed a law similar to the one you are all considering with a 15-month effective date, despite having over 30 puppy-selling pet stores in the state. 12 months is more than enough time for a pet store to convert their business model. Please change the effective date to ensure the proper protections are in place for animals and consumers. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Michelle Lazaran? Or Lazaran?
It's an inside joke between Don Anthony and I. Michelle Lazaro from Hallandale Beach. Thank you, everybody, again, for discussing this item, passing it. It's very important. I just want to revisit this again because I want to make sure it goes on record. This is from Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control. This is the report that went with these pictures, and I'm happy to pass them down to the clerk if you'd like to see them.
You want to submit them for record?
I did send it in an email, but I want to, if you want to just pass it down while I'm reading, I'd appreciate it. Today I was investigating a complaint and gathering the facts due to a full investigation. I was told by a former employee that the puppies are delivered every Wednesday to Star Pups, and when they arrive, they're filthy and poor condition. Many come in dehydrated. I parked the truck outside 9 a.m. and waited a delivery. I'm just going to go ahead to where we get to the pictures. So Manager Sherwin and owner Michelle, Danny Ruiz's wife, were present, and there were several empty labeled cages in the back room awaiting the shipment of new puppies. I took photos of puppies inside the store and asked about the 4 puppies in the quarantine room. Sherwin advised a veterinarian will be there to look today at them, and most of them just had colds. I went to the van to enter information, and an unmarked delivery truck loaded with puppies arrived at the rear door of Star Pups. The large white van was driven by Ohio driver, and he said that 18 puppies to deliver to Star Pups today. The cages were handmade and stacked on top of each other. They looked like handmade pigeon transport cages. They were long and deep. Several scared puppies were stuffed inside with 2 to 4 pups to a cage. Different bred dogs were not litter mates, and puppies were piled up on top of each other in the rear of the cages, shaking. None of the cages had any available water, and each cage had an empty chewed water bottle for human consumption. There were feces in the bottom of the cages. The puppies sat directly on cage wire with open squares for the feces to fall through. Their legs could also fit through the cage's wire spacing. No platforms, solid surfaces, or blankets were available for the puppies to comfortably sit on. Those are the pictures that were taken by the animal care and control officer. So my question is, if Sunrise and Palm Beach Gardens have already set the precedent that 9 months and 6 months is long enough to give a phase-out period, why would you let something like this continue for 18 months? And I heard the mayor say last time that he would start it sooner if he could, stop it sooner if he could. So my concern is that a constituent is going to buy a dog in this store over the next 18 months, and they're going to get sick, and they're going to come to you and ask you why you let this go on when you knew that you could stop it sooner. It's the only question that I have for this council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Don Anthony?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Don Anthony, Communications Director for the Animal Rights Foundation of Florida. As you know, when you go to a pet shop, the dogs and cats you see there come from large-scale forced breeding farms where females live their entire lives in wire cages, usually outside in the blazing summer heat and freezing winters. The puppies that come from them are frequently defective because of all the inbreeding. So the bottom line is, what you have are defective, sick dogs that come from neglected dogs. You know that. That's why you're passing this ordinance. It's consumer fraud when people buy what they think is a healthy puppy, only to discover that it may cost them thousands in vet bills. These ordinances never affect consumer choice. I just want to say that for the record. They never affect hobby breeders. They've always been able to sell direct to the public and always will be. And they never close stores or shut down businesses. It's not about the stores, the people who work there. It's about the source of the dogs, the defective animals that come from caged, neglected animals and are delivered to the back doors of pet shops from an 18-wheeler. Consumers will always have the same choices they have right now. If they just have to have a certain breed, they can always get one from a hobby breeder or a breed-specific rescue. The biggest stores in the country, like PetSmart and Pet Supermarket, do not sell forced bred animals, just adoptable ones from the shelter. And the only people who are against these ordinances are pet shop owners and high-paid lobbyists for the puppy mills. I'm asking just for one change, the same change everyone else is asking for. If you could, cut the transition time. You've already dropped it from 24 to 18 months, but in all the years that I've been dealing with this issue and the dozens of cities in which I've spoken, not one has ever come up with 18 months. It's a little excessive. Most cities go for 90 days or 6 months. Even a year would be much better than 18 months. I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Ken Pelter?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ken Pelton, and I'm from Cooper City. I'm an interested observer of this whole issue. So I've come up here to just say that I won't go over all the horrible issues that revolve around this terrible business. But I would like to say that congratulate you and your community, because even though you can't stop the puppy mill industry by yourselves, you have come to the realization that you don't have to participate in it. And that's along the same lines as the famous words that Gandhi said many years ago, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I would just like to say thank you very much for doing the noble thing that you've done. And you've joined about 50 other cities in Florida that have done the same thing. And we hope it'll keep going. So thank you very much. And I would like to endorse what my previous speakers have said about shortening the phase-out period. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. I have no further comment cards on agenda item R3, but if anyone else would still like to speak, now would be the time to come up. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on agenda item R3. And we have some comments. Who was first? I didn't catch it. Go ahead, Celine.
Hi. Actually, I'd like to say thank you again to Mrs. Cook for coming in and being such an advocate for this. So thank you very much. And Councilwoman Lazaro, thank you very much for all of your guidance. One thing that is, and I understand as far as the time period that we had talked about, I did talk to the village attorney though, and I said, because there was a rumor if Star Pups was not renewing their lease or was leaving within that time, that if we could do an ordinance saying that we would then stop it from another one of him relocating within the village or anything like that. So we can go through, once he does leave, if it is before that 18-month period, to then have another ordinance come through, and it would be read on the first reading, correct? That we can go through.
Right, I would, obviously, we'd have to confirm that the owner has left and not relocating, because my understanding was the direction from council last time is that owner got 18 months, regardless of where he was in the village, for 18 months, and then he had to be out. But if he is gone...
Relocate out of the village, which we have no jurisdiction.
We have no jurisdiction over that. But if he is truly gone, what I told Councilwoman Smith is if council directed me, we could write an ordinance saying the prohibition is effective immediately. But without knowing what he's doing with his lease at this point in time, I couldn't say definitively whether that's...
What would be the purpose for that?
It's
To get him gone, period.
Quicker termination.
If he's gone, you're saying that he can't reopen up and say, well, I still got 7 months on the clock.
If
Yeah.
his licenses are active with Palm Beach County, he does have the right to relocate.
Outside of the village?
No, he can relocate in the
No,
village.
but I'm saying if he tries to relocate within a village.
He can. But he would only have
If he's still on the clock.
18 months total.
Okay, so to stop the clock, if he closes, we stop the clock. That's what you're saying?
That's what
That's
the
what Selena talked
suggestion
about.
is.
Well, if we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. Yeah. Okay. You done? Okay. Richard?
My comment is just, I thank you everyone for coming out, but the 18-month period, there's a reason for it. I mean, the guy was here last night and made overtures that the business owner that he would sue if this came in, and as responsible people of the public dollars up here, why would we want to go down a course of action that, because you went X months versus Y months? Because we know from the State Road 7 litigation, I mean, litigation isn't a fun thing, and it's not something that's going to be over in a couple minutes. This is something that not only would cost public dollars, but it would strain our staff time and our village attorney's time as well. She came up and we discussed it and went with 18 months. And I don't see why that's an unreasonable thing when you're looking at the alternative, which is now we have nothing. So it's a good thing we're addressing it. And yeah, it'd be great if it was gone tomorrow, but that's not the only consideration for the council up here. And that's why I don't like the 18 months, but I think that's the best resolution to that problem. And then I agree completely with the vice mayor about, hey, if this is out, let's slam the door on it when we get the chance.
All right, we can close that door.
Nothing?
Well, I just support that idea about being able to close the door. If the lease is terminated and or ends, to offer up a new ordinance to be able to do that makes good sense, and it's a good viable option. that really accomplishes what we were trying to make happen here in a fair, reasonable way that might have a chance in a court of law.
How would we know?
Well,
We have to keep dropping by every
there's
day?
rumors that a Sherwin-Williams is moving in, so when Sherwin-Williams applies for their business tax
They tell us
receipt
this
and their
is the place they wanna
sign,
apply.
that will be pretty
All right, so we'll
obvious.
keep our
That's good.
alert
Yes.
flag up for that. Okay. No? All right. I just would like to just say thank you also to everyone who's come here and given us your professional and experience on this issue. I just want to put into context from where we were to where we are now, right? About 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, 18 months ago, we had just engaged at the suggestion of one of our council members, Selena Smith, to talk about the issue and to get, understand what the issue was. We really didn't at that point. I know I certainly didn't. And we spent some time. We spent about 18 months talking about this as a council, but more importantly, we spent some time getting educated on the issue, and then determining as a governing body, was this something that was a potential harm from a health standpoint to our citizens. And once we concluded that this was having an impact, a negative impact on our citizens, we decided that's what we're here for, to protect the quality of life of our citizens. And it was then that we determined that we needed to figure out what we would do about this. So we moved the dial initially in that fashion. Jennifer, our attorney, educated us that the reality was that a law or an ordinance had already been passed some years ago by the county. But for reasons that we don't know, the county did not choose to put they grandfathered, so to speak, all of the existing businesses in the county that were violating the new rule or the new ordinance that they just put in place, saying it was illegal to do this. We don't understand why they did that. That's not our concern. So we decided, well, we always abide by the laws and statutes of our county and of the state. And one of the things we don't do as a local government is duplicate those laws. If the law is in place already, we look at it and we say, is there any reason why we can't be compliant with that? And if there isn't, we're compliant with it. But the but here was, but we still had an operation going on, and we weren't comfortable with the fact that the county did not enact any sunset date for this to stop. And we concluded the right thing for us to do for our citizens was to put in place a sunset date. So once we got to that point, now we're on the point, on the track that Councilman Valentes just mentioned, is we couldn't be arbitrary and capricious on deciding on, okay, let's just close them down. What would be the ramification of doing that? Our attorney advised us that we need to be careful not to invoke a situation where we could not defend ourselves, or we'd have to defend ourselves in a court of law because we determined a date that may not be considered an appropriate phase-out period. One of the things we learned a long time ago, I learned a long time ago, is you have an attorney that is here to advise the council to keep us out of trouble. You listen to your attorney. You pay attention to what it is that your attorney suggests you do. Jennifer came back initially with 2 years as a phase-out, 24 months. And those of you who were here for the first hearing know that we had quite a bit of dialogue back and forth on that. And we got to the point where we actually asked Jennifer, what do you think about 18 months? And would that keep us out of harm's way from a legal standpoint? Clearly, from an emotional standpoint, we understand where you're coming from, and we get it, all right? A day that it continues is a day too much, and we understand that. But putting on the hats that we have to wear is we're representing, 38,000 residents and the financial welfare of this village. We have to make decisions that are going to keep us on the right track in that regard. And our attorney said, 18 months is, we could live with that. And I don't think you've changed on that, right? Okay. So, with that said, thank you again, and I hope you understand the other side of the issue of where we were, where we've come to now, and the reality of why we wound up with the 18-month phase-out. We get the emotional reality that you have shared with us, but in the best interest of the village, we're going to have to stick with the 18 months. So,
for the time being, anyway.
Well, yeah, if that bridge, we get to that bridge where we're called to close the door, I think you think that agreement that that's something that we would certainly move on. As long as we know about it, we got to keep the eye out there somehow and keep track of that.
I drive that road every day. I'll know.
Okay, whatever method we use, as long as we stay on top of it. So with that, if there are no further comments from members on council, you have to read.
I do. Thank you. This is ordinance number 975, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 5 Animals at Article 2 Dogs and Cats, Division 1 generally to add an entirely new Section 5-45 retail sale of dogs and or cats in order to prohibit the retail sale of dogs and or cats at pet stores and pet supply stores, to provide exemptions and penalties, and to provide an amortization period for lawfully operating businesses, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 5 Animals shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. With that, I'll look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R3 was approved 5-0. And I will ask all of you, get the word out to our citizens. Let them know that don't go there, don't do this, because what's going to happen. And maybe educate them more as we go through this transition period. Thank you all. There's no further business this evening before the council. Seeing that, we'll adjourn. Thank you all.